Hi there, this is Marty, and today we're going to take a look at these Artist Loft Watercolor markers. These markers feature a dual tip, a brush end, and a fine point end, and I'm going to put these to the test today and see how they compare with other watercolor markers as well as other watercolor paints in general. But the first thing I want to do is mention some of the features of the pen itself. So like I said, it's dual tip. One end has a brush tip and the other end has a fine tip. Now the caps on either end are tight, which is good because you want these to be airtight so that the pens themselves don't dry out. And all the pens I tested, none of them were dry, so that's really good news. I believe both ends of the pen to be nylon, which is very nice. It holds up well. It did in my tests as well, but just nice that they're at least seem to be decently made. They don't put the color name on the pen, which I wish they would. They do designate the brush end from the tip end, which is nice so that you know right offhand which cap you need to take off to get which tip. When I swatch these out here, I'll just do the marker color first, and then eventually I'll add water to these and swatch each one out. But a couple of things I wanted to mention about the pen right off the top is, if you look at the packaging, they claim that they're ATSM certified for safety and non-toxicity and all that stuff. So that's good news as well. These pens are made in Taiwan, and overall the feel of the pen is nice. It's not heavy. It's not too light. I'd say they're just about right. They put me in the mind of the Tombow pen. Now, see what happens though with these markers when I add water. They basically turn into watercolor paint, which is really neat and always a great feature and something I love about watercolor markers. And right now I'm just kind of looking at dispersion and just to see how much the water, when you add water to the color, how does it break it up and flow? Are there remnants of the marker line underneath? And you can see a slight remnant underneath there, but not a ton, which is surprising when you consider the price point on these markers is very, very low. I mean, the whole line of Artist Loft art supplies is pretty much meant for low-end, sort of recreational hobbyist use, not really directed to fine art. But yet and still, I think they try to do a decent job with most of the items they sell. I've looked at some Artist Loft stuff before and haven't been super impressed, but these markers aren't bad. So here I'm just trying to mix colors, and here's where I think these markers basically fall short. So where you might get like a Winsor & Newton watercolor marker, which is pure pigment, it's not dye-based. This is supposed to be a water-based ink. It's probably dye-based to keep the price point low. But when you go to mix, like I'll try to mix green here with a blue and yellow, and you can see what I get pretty much is the blue sort of dominates at first, and then I just sort of get mud. So it doesn't work real well like this. And I even gave it a second shot here. You can see some green, but you're almost better off just using a green marker. Now, if you were going to incidentally blend, that's probably fine. But if you're purposefully looking to blend and you want it to be good quality, I wouldn't probably rely on these markers for that sort of thing. So let me do a little sketch here and we'll try them out on an actual drawing and see how that goes. Well, that was pretty fun, and I think that the black really is sort of like a Payne's gray. It's got a little blue tint to it, and I'll show you that here. I kind of like that, but not everybody will. They'll want their blacks to be pure black and not to be like a Payne's gray or have that blue hue in it. Let's compare these to some other watercolor markers. Now here's the very fine Winsor & Newton watercolor marker made in France, which I think is probably the best watercolor marker on the market, and actually one of the best watercolors. I really love the Winsor & Newton watercolor markers. Here are the Royal Talens watercolor markers, and you can see here they're a little bit, I'd say slightly more vibrant, but these are a dye-based ink, so they're not really meant to be light fast. Here's some watercolors. These are the very fine Schminke watercolors made in Germany. If you follow my channel, you'll know that these are the best watercolors in the world, in my opinion. So it's a tough comparison there. There's the Dr. P.H. Martin Radiant, which are very nice concentrated watercolors, and you can see the vibrancy. And I just threw those on there as a comparison. Now here's Jackson watercolors made in Germany. They're not readily available in the States, but a friend of mine in Germany sent these to me, and I love them. I'm just comparing the color here, and you can see right there for yourself. Now how about a watercolor pencil? So watercolor markers, watercolors, and watercolor pencils. I even think obviously the Faber-Castell Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencil has more vibrancy and upside than these lower-end Artist Loft watercolor markers. All right, well, I think we should take a look at the final ratings on these. These are, again, made in Taiwan, and they're not bad. I'd say, for what you're getting, and now I want to rate these in the category that they're in, which is, I would say, student grade at best. I gave the color a 6. I thought they had nice color. The vibrancy was about average. Transparency, though, was pretty good with these. And the dispersion was also good. And I think they're pretty versatile, having the dual tip ends. And I think overall the quality was decent. I think when you consider how little these cost, they're a pretty good value. I wouldn't expect these to be light fast, but again, that's probably something you look for in a step up from these. Remember, this rating is in the category that these are in. So here we go. 6.5 rating for these Artist Loft watercolor markers. And I wanted to give a huge shout out to those of you who went and bought the Owings Art custom drawing and sketching kit. Thank you very much. We're going to plan something for the spring. Some people bought multiple sets. Some people were disappointed they couldn't get one. But thank you to everybody. Look for more in the spring, and check that out in an upcoming. I'll announce it when we're ready to put together another kit. If you haven't done so, go over to owingsart.com, scroll down on my website, click the blue follow button, and then every couple weeks or so you'll get a notice, maybe once a month, that I have posted something on the blog. Musings, art pieces, general insights to my techniques, all that stuff there. Hopefully you'll check it out. And if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and pop over to Patreon. Even if you don't become a patron of mine, check out the site. There's exclusive content over there that's not available here on YouTube, and it's available to patrons. But go check it out in either case. And you can follow me on any of these social media platforms, and I hope you do. I love to interact with you guys, and I love to hear from you. And don't forget that I purchase all the products I review on the channel unless I state otherwise. I try to be fair to all the products, but again, you guys come first, as it should be. All right, well, so long for now. This has been Marty for owingsart.com.